Do you really think you make your own decisions? What to buy? Where to invest? How to live? Billionaires spend billions every year to secretly control your choices. And most people have no clue. In this video, I'm exposing exactly how they hijack your brain and what you must do to break free before it's too late. Stick around, because ignoring this means you keep making them richer while your bank account stays empty. You think you own your phone. You think you pick it up because you want to check a text, reply to a friend, scroll a little before bed. But that feeling, that tiny flicker of choice, is the most expensive illusion billionaires have ever sold you. Right now, whether you're lying on your couch or sneaking a glance during work, someone wealthier than you is reaching straight through that glass screen, feeding on your time, your focus, your sanity, piece by tiny piece. Maybe you've told yourself you can quit anytime. Delete an app here, silence notifications there. Promise yourself you'll read more books this year. You already know how that ends. Because the truth is, it's not just about the apps or the phone. It's about something much older, buried under convenience and entertainment. Something you felt every time you close a tab and wonder where the last 2 hours went. But there's a part no one ever talks about. I'll come back to that. Tonight, you'll tell yourself it's just harmless scrolling. Tomorrow, you'll forget half the things you read. Next week, the news, the arguments, the memes, the outrage, all of it will blur together until you can't tell if you're angry at your own life or just addicted to other people's chaos. And while you drift, half awake and overstimulated, they'll keep counting the profit. This story isn't just about your phone. It's about who built the cage, why you keep unlocking it, and how much you're worth to them. Alive, distracted, and broke. Jake's not a fool. He's like you, like me, smart enough to know his phone is a black hole, yet somehow still convinced he's the one in control. At 29, Jake works a job that pays just enough to keep him busy and too tired to question where his time goes. Every night, he lies in bed, thumb flicking upward, eyes glazed, mind half arguing with strangers he'll never meet again. He hates it, but he does it anyway. His friends joke about doom scrolling like it's just another meme to post and forget. But for Jake, it's become a ritual. One more hour, one more reel, one more tiny dopamine hit to numb the nagging thought that something is deeply wrong with how he lives. He wonders if maybe he just lacks discipline. Maybe he's weak. Maybe everyone else has figured out how to balance life and screens, and he's the idiot left behind. But there's something Jake doesn't see, and almost nobody tells him this part. I'll come back to that in a second. What Jake can't admit, even to himself, is that he's not scrolling because he wants to. He's scrolling because every pixel, every swipe, every notification bubble was built by people far more patient and cunning than he could ever be. At 2 a.m., and while Jake worries he's wasting his life, someone in a glass office 5 time zones away is quietly buying another mansion, funded by the seconds Jake keeps giving away for free. He thinks he's just killing time. But what's dying is far more expensive than time. Jake thinks he's trading his boredom for a bit of entertainment, but that trade is rigged. Every flick of his thumb feeds a machine older than the phone itself. The ancient economy of attention, now weaponized by algorithms that know him better than he knows himself. He doesn't pay with dollars upfront. He pays in something far scarcer. The focus he needs to build a life he actually wants. Decades ago, TV ads sold you soap and cereal during commercial breaks. Primitive, obvious, but when the internet grew up, the richest men in Silicon Valley realized they could skip the middleman. Why sell an ad slot once, when you could design an entire world that keeps Jake staring at glowing glass all day, feeding data back to the hive in real time? He thinks he's choosing. He's not, and you probably aren't either. But there's a twist to this story that makes it worse than you think. Hold that thought. Most people know apps are addictive, but few realize it's not an accident. It's engineered like a slot machine hidden in your pocket. Random rewards, variable likes, tiny red dots. It's called intermittent reinforcement. Casinos run on it. Social media runs on it. Even grown adults, teachers, nurses, parents reduce themselves to lab rats because the variable reward is stronger than willpower alone. Jake blames himself for weak discipline, but he should be blaming the people who made the cage invisible enough that he wouldn't fight back. And they're counting on him never waking up. There's a reason. Jake feels exhausted after hours online, yet can't remember a single thing he consumed. The algorithm doesn't care if he's informed, happy, or sane. It cares about one metric only: how long he stays glued to the screen. Outrage, fear, envy. These aren't bugs in the system. They're features, and here's the uncomfortable part, they work better than joy ever could. When Facebook first unleashed its news feed, it didn't intend to polarize entire nations overnight. But as the feed learned that anger and scandal keep people scrolling, it doubled down. It showed you the worst comment thread first, the ugliest headline, the flame war you'd swear you'd never join, until you did. Jake's no different. He thinks he's catching up on news, but he's really feeding a system that profits every time he loses another ounce of trust in his neighbors. You might think, well, so what? I can handle a few trolls. But the spillover is far bigger. Studies have linked spikes in hate crimes to Facebook usage in certain areas. Twitter's chaos has fueled everything from political coups to personal bankruptcies. Jake doesn't see that link. He just feels more paranoid, more restless, more certain the world is on fire, yet too numb to do anything meaningful about it. That numbness is the jackpot for the billionaires behind the curtain. But there's a different path, and one man, almost identical to Jake, found it. I'll show you how he escaped in a moment. Kevin could have been Jake, same age, same job, same paycheck bleeding out every month on rent and bills. He used to lie awake scrolling just like Jake, convinced that if he didn't check every ping, he'd miss something crucial, an emergency text, a breaking headline, an opportunity that never came. But then something shifted. Kevin didn't suddenly become more disciplined or delete all his accounts overnight. Instead, he learned one truth that Jake hasn't faced yet. I'll circle back to that truth in a second. What Kevin grasped, painfully and slowly, was that the phone was never neutral. It was a slot machine designed to keep him pulling the lever. So he stopped trying to win the game and changed where he played. He moved everything he could to his computer. Messages, articles, videos. At first, it felt pointless. He could waste time on a bigger screen just as easily. But the friction mattered. No constant buzz in his pocket. No half-awake reflex to reach for a glowing rectangle. The ritual of sitting at a desk made him pause, think, and sometimes choose. Something better than scrolling. Months passed. Kevin didn't become a monk. He still wasted time. He still got lost in comment sections. But hour by hour, he clawed back pieces of his mind. He used those reclaimed hours to learn a skill he'd always brushed off as someday. He took on freelance work. He read entire books without picking up his phone every 5 minutes. Meanwhile, Jake still wonders why he's so tired, so distracted, so far behind. The only difference is Kevin accepted what most people deny, that discipline alone won't save you in a system designed to eat discipline alive. But there's another layer to this escape. One Kevin uses every day that Jake can't even imagine yet. Stay with me. Kevin knew quitting the phone trap wasn't just about screens. It was about the ecosystem built to keep him locked inside, a loop he didn't design. Most people think tech giants want your clicks for ad dollars. That's true. But it's not the whole story. What they really crave is control over your habits. Every scroll, every rage share, every late night impulse buy stitches you tighter to their cash flow. And they've turned human predictability into the most profitable asset on earth. Look at notifications, a simple ping, a glowing icon, tiny hooks baited with uncertainty. Sometimes it's important, a friend's text, an urgent work email. But most of the time, it's nonsense you could ignore. The uncertainty is the hook. Casinos thrive on this same trick. You never know when the next pull might hit the jackpot. And your brain loves a maybe far more than a sure thing. This is why turning off notifications feels like a loss. You're wired to fear missing out, even when you're missing nothing. People say, just be mindful, limit screen time, stay disciplined. They underestimate the billions poured into keeping you exactly as you are, distracted enough to buy, angry enough to engage, passive enough to accept that your day vanished again. Jake tries willpower alone, and every week he fails. Kevin uses anger, not at himself, but at the puppet masters who profit from him doubting his own will. That switch, from guilt to defiance, is Kevin's hidden edge. But even defiance alone isn't enough if you don't act on it. In a moment, I'll show you exactly how Kevin breaks the loop, piece by piece. Kevin didn't just rage against big tech, he dismantled the hooks one by one, in ways Jake still thinks are pointless tricks. But every small barrier he built made the billionaires pay him back with time. Time he could use to think, create, rest, or just be bored again without feeding a machine. His method wasn't perfect, but it was real. First, Kevin shifted all the mindless feeds to his computer. If he wanted to scroll, he had to sit upright, open a browser, and face the fact that he was about to waste an hour consciously, not half asleep on a couch. That friction alone cut his nightly scrolling by half within a month. Then he gutted his phone. No news apps, no social feeds, no push notifications except for real calls and texts. What felt like digital amputation at first turned into quiet he hadn't heard in years. Next, he replaced the black hole with tools that tricked his habits into building something. A Sudoku app instead of Twitter. An offline music library instead of Spotify's endless autoplay. He kept a cheap puzzle cube by his desk to fidget with instead of reaching for his pocket. He blocked YouTube recommendations with plugins. He set timers on his laptop to lock him out when curiosity drifted into addiction. It didn't make him a productivity monk overnight, but it forced him to choose, not just react. Most importantly, he forgave himself when he slipped. Guilt is fuel for algorithms, not for change. What kept him consistent was anger properly aimed. Every minute he clawed back wasn't just self-care. It was stolen profit returned from people who never deserved it. Jake still believes he can muscle through with sheer willpower. Kevin knows willpower is just a spark. Real freedom is built with obstacles, friction, and a plan too boring to sell in a motivational video. But there's one final thing Kevin does differently. The thing that locks his escape in place for good. I'll end with that. Jake doesn't know it yet, but he's financing other people's freedom with his own wasted hours. Kevin realized this ugly truth early enough to flip the transaction. He turned outrage into strategy, strategy into daily friction, and daily friction into a mind that could resist being harvested like a crop. That final piece, the one Jake still misses, is that Kevin never treats himself as the problem. He treats the system as the enemy. Every time Kevin forgets and falls back into old habits, he doesn't spiral into guilt. He updates his barriers. He moves his phone charger across the house. He blocks the newest distraction. He reminds himself that willpower is finite, but friction is forever. Over time, the billionaire's profit shrinks by pennies, not enough to bankrupt them, but enough to buy Kevin another hour, another clear thought, another night of sleep that belongs to him alone. Jake might watch this and shrug it off as just another self-help rant. Most people will. But if you, maybe you, feel that quiet itch right now, the suspicion that your tiredness, your scattered mind, your anxiety aren't flaws in your character, but features in someone else's business model. If you feel that, then do one thing. Before today ends, pick one friction, hide an app, move your charger, block the feed, break the loop once. If you made it this far, you've already proven you're not just another lab rat for sale. You don't owe them another second. You owe yourself the proof that you can still choose what your mind does next. Share this with someone whose brain you want back in their own hands before they scroll past it forever. Most people will forget this tomorrow. They'll wake up, reach for the same glowing screen, and sell another day for pennies to men who will never even know their name. But you, if you've listened this far, you've already stepped outside that invisible fence, if only for a moment. That's all it takes to see how deep it runs. Your phone will keep buzzing. The feeds will keep baiting you. The billionaires will keep building new cages every time you outgrow the old one. But they can't touch the hours you guard on purpose, the skills you build offline, the silence you defend so you can think like a free human again. Start small. Break one link, then another, then another. They'll never notice you slipping through the cracks, but one day, you'll wake up and realize you built a mind no algorithm can afford to own. And if this opened your eyes, pass it forward. One less mind for them to harvest, one more hour that belongs to us, not them.